The twin suns of Velareth painted the sky in gold and violet. It was a world of light, beauty, and harmony, home to the Valyrian Empire, a race of tall, elegant beings with crystal-like skin and eyes that shimmered like stars. Their technology was powered by thought, their society ruled by logic and balance. But even in this peaceful world, there was tension. A new age of diplomacy had begun, an alliance between Earth and Velareth. For many it was strange. Humans were seen as emotional, unpredictable, and too young as a species to stand among the ancient powers of the galaxy. And yet, the alliance had been sealed in an unusual way. Through marriage, the Princess Lyra Valera, heir to the Crystal Throne, had been joined in union with a human, Captain Marcus Hale, a decorated officer from the Earth Defense Fleet. It was meant to symbolize peace between their worlds. To most Valyrians, the human seemed unremarkable, shorter, physically plain, and without the shimmering energy that marked their kind. His emotions were visible, his manner casual, his laugh too loud for the royal court's taste. But Lyra was curious. From the day they met, Marcus had treated her not as a goddess or a political figure, but as a person. He listened when she spoke. He smiled often, and though she found his facial expressions odd at first, there was a warmth to them she had never known in her world of ceremony and control. The great hall of the Crystal Palace shimmered with quiet music the evening of their introduction. Lyra sat on the high dais, her silver gown glowing faintly under the light of the floating crystals. The human ambassador had arrived with his staff, and among them stood Marcus, tall for his species, his posture straight, eyes calm but alert. When he bowed, it was not with fear or worship, but with respect. "Your Highness," he said, his voice steady, "it's an honor to meet you. I hope we can make this alliance something both our people can be proud of." Lyra tilted her head slightly. His tone was plain. No poetic words, no elegant metaphors, just truth. That was her first impression of Marcus Hale, simple but solid. Later that night, when they shared their first private conversation in the garden, she found herself asking him questions she would never ask anyone else. "What do you humans value most?" she asked softly, her voice like music in the quiet air. Marcus looked up at the twin moons. "Choice," he said. "The freedom to become better than we were yesterday." It was such a simple answer. Yet it stayed with her long after he left. Days turned to weeks. The Alliance celebrations continued across Velareth. The humans and Valyrians began to learn from one another. The humans brought machines and ideas that amazed the Empire. Engines powered by fusion, medical tools that healed with light, and art full of emotion and movement. Still, whispers spread through the court. "He's only human," said the noble Lord Vesser, shaking his head. "Their minds are too limited. Their lifespans too short." "They act on feeling, not reason," another said. "How can such beings serve the royal family?" Lyra ignored them, but their words reached her ears every day. Marcus, however, seemed unaffected. He joined the palace guards in training, offered advice on security systems, and spent his evenings exploring the city markets. The people found him strange but kind. He always greeted them with a smile, helped merchants carry crates, and spoke to children as if they were equals. Once, Lyra found him watching the sunset from the palace balcony. She approached quietly. "You seem at peace here," she said. He smiled without looking away. "Your world is beautiful." "It's calm. I didn't realize how much I needed calm until I came here." "Was Earth not calm?" she asked. Marcus was silent for a moment. Then he said quietly, "Earth has beauty too, but it was born from struggle. We learned peace because we had to." She wanted to ask more, but the look in his eyes, distant, thoughtful, told her not to. Weeks later, a grand ceremony took place, the official binding of two worlds, where their marriage would be recognized before both species. The hall was filled with representatives from across the stars. Lyra wore a gown of crystal silk, while Marcus stood beside her in the dark blue uniform of the Earth Fleet. As the High Priest spoke the words of unity, Lyra found her gaze drifting toward Marcus again and again. He stood with perfect stillness, but she could sense something deep within him, a quiet strength that didn't match his gentle smile. When it was time to exchange the vows, Marcus spoke first. "I don't know what destiny expects from us," he said, "but I'll protect this peace, and you, with everything I am." There was no flourish, No practiced speech, only sincerity, and when their hands touched, Lyra felt something strange. Not psionic energy, not magic, but life. Raw, bright, and human. That night, after the celebration, Lyra walked with Marcus through the royal gardens. The air was cool and the moonlight shimmered across the ponds. "Do you ever miss Earth?" she asked. "Every day," he admitted with a soft smile. "But being here reminds me why we reached for the stars in the first place. We wanted to learn, to connect, to see what was beyond ourselves." "You sound like a philosopher," she said teasingly. He chuckled. "I'm just a soldier who learned to dream." They walked in silence for a moment. The sound of the night breeze filled the air. Then Lyra said quietly, "My people think you are harmless." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Harmless?" She nodded. "They see no power in you. No psionic gift. No glow in your eyes. To them you are ordinary." Marcus looked at her amused. "Power isn't always what you can see, Princess." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then what is it?" He paused, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes it's what you choose to stand for, even when you're afraid." Lyra didn't fully understand, but something about his words stayed with her. The next morning, she overheard a conversation between two council members. "The human smiles too much," one said. "He hides something." "Perhaps fear," the other replied. "Or weakness." Lyra frowned but said nothing. That afternoon, she visited the training grounds where Marcus was sparring with the palace guards. Though he lacked the speed and agility of the Valyrians, his movements were efficient and controlled. Every strike was measured, every step deliberate. When the session ended, one of the guards laughed. "You move like someone who's fought too many times." Marcus just smiled. "Maybe I have." Lyra watched him leave the field, her curiosity deepening. Who was this man really? That evening, they dined together in the palace observatory. Through the glass ceiling, the stars of the galaxy shone brightly. Marcus seemed lost in thought as he gazed at them. "Do you believe in destiny?" Lyra asked. He smiled faintly. "I believe in choice more than destiny. Every path we walk is made by the steps we take." "You speak like one who has walked many paths," she said softly. He met her eyes, and for a brief second she saw something there. Something deep. Something ancient. It wasn't fear. It wasn't sadness. It was memory. She felt her breath catch. Then just as quickly his expression softened again into that gentle, calm smile she had come to know. "Good night, Princess," he said, rising from the table. "Good night, Marcus," she replied quietly. As he left, she found herself staring after him and wondering what lay behind those human eyes. In the peaceful light of Valerith, everyone saw Captain Marcus Hale as calm and harmless. Only Princess Lyra had begun to sense that beneath his quiet nature was something else. Something powerful, hidden and waiting. And though she didn't know it yet, the day would come when the truth behind those eyes would change the fate of two worlds forever. The palace of Valerith stood tall and peaceful under the silver light of its twin moons. The wind carried the scent of glowing flowers from the royal gardens, and the night skies shimmered with quiet grace. Yet beneath the calm surface of the great empire, whispers had begun to spread. They whispered about the human. Captain Marcus Hale. He was too calm, they said. Too polite. Too patient. Some said he was weak. Others said he was pretending to be weak. In the halls of power, doubt was a seed, and now it had started to grow. Inside the royal council chamber, Lord Vesser, the proud noble of House Cylon, spoke with a sharp tone. "This alliance was a mistake," he said coldly. "Humans are short-lived and reckless. They act with emotion, not wisdom. How can such a man guide our princess?" "Captain Hale has done nothing wrong," said Councillor Irel, one of Lyra's few supporters. "He has been respectful and loyal since the day he arrived." "Respectful?" Vesser scoffed. "He is a soldier pretending to be a diplomat. Mark my words, something about him is not what it seems." Princess Lyra, who had quietly entered the room, let her voice echo through the hall. "You speak boldly for one who hides behind rumor, Lord Vesser." The noble froze, realizing she had overheard him. He bowed quickly. "Your Highness, I mean no disrespect. You speak of peace, yet your words are filled with fear," she said calmly. "If you fear what you do not understand, perhaps you should learn before you judge." Her words silenced the room. She turned and left before Vesser could respond. But as she walked down the long marble corridor, her thoughts were not calm. because deep inside, she too had begun to wonder who Marcus Hale really was. That evening, Marcus sat on the palace balcony, looking at the distant stars. The twin moons reflected in his eyes as he thought quietly. He had grown used to the whispers. Every world he visited, every alien culture he served beside, the looks were always the same. Curious, doubtful, cautious. But he had made peace with that long ago. He heard soft footsteps behind him. "You are thinking again," Lyra said gently. He smiled. "I do that sometimes. Old habit." She sat beside him, her gown shimmering like liquid silver. "The council questions you," she said softly. "I know," Marcus replied. "It doesn't bother me. Fear is natural. We humans fear what we don't understand too." She looked at him with quiet curiosity. "And what do you fear?" Marcus leaned back, his gaze drifting upward. "Losing what I've sworn to protect." His words were calm, but his tone carried a shadow, a memory that had never truly faded. Later that night, Marcus walked through the empty corridors of the palace. He liked the silence. It reminded him of the long nights on the outer colonies, the stars above, the radio static, the feeling that tomorrow might never come. He paused by a window, staring out into the dark horizon. For a moment, his reflection stared back at him, a man who looked ordinary, but whose eyes carried the weight of years of war. He closed them, trying to forget. But memories had their own will. He saw the siege of Titan again, the cold red dust, the thunder of orbital fire, the screams over the comm channel. His unit had been pinned down for days. He remembered his commander's last words, "Hold the line, Hale. No one else is coming." And he had held it, alone. When he opened his eyes again, the palace was still quiet. But his heart had not settled. The next day, Lyra invited Marcus to join her on a visit to the Academy of Thought, a place where young Valyrians trained their minds. The students greeted her with bows and respectful silence. When Marcus entered, however, their curiosity filled the air like quiet energy. "Is it true you cannot use thought power?" one young student asked shyly. Marcus smiled. "That's true. Humans think with their minds, not their energy." Another student frowned. "Then how do you fight? How do you protect yourself?" "By working together," Marcus said simply. "One human alone can fail. But when we stand side by side, we become stronger than we could ever be apart." The young one seemed confused but thoughtful. Lyra watched quietly. She noticed that even when he spoke simply, his words carried weight. He did not teach power. He taught belief. Later, as they left the academy, Lyra said softly, "You speak like a leader, not a soldier." Marcus laughed gently. "Every soldier has to lead at some point, even if it's just himself." She smiled faintly. "My people see strength as something bright, something you can see and feel. But your strength, it's quiet. It hides behind calm words." He looked at her and said, "That's because my kind had to learn to survive when we had nothing but each other." For a moment, she saw something flicker in his eyes, pain, pride, and something else. "Marcus," she asked quietly, "what did you see before you came here?" He hesitated. Then he answered, his voice low, "Too much." That night, trouble came to the palace. It began as a faint sound. Footsteps where none should be, shadows moving where no guards patrolled. The security lights flickered, then went dark. Lyra, in her private chamber, felt a strange disturbance. Her psionic sense caught the faint vibration of hostile intent. She stood quickly, reaching for her crystal staff. Before she could react further, the doors burst open. Two masked figures rushed in, their blades shimmering with dull red energy. Lyra raised her hand, a bright psionic barrier forming before her. But the attackers were fast. The first strike shattered her shield, forcing her back. She cried out as one of them lunged forward, and then everything stopped. A blur moved between them, a flash of motion, a sound like wind, and both attackers fell back, their weapons clattering against the floor. Marcus stood there, breathing calmly, his posture controlled. His eyes, usually soft and gentle, were sharp now, cold and focused. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. Lyra could hardly process what she had seen. He had moved faster than she thought possible for a human. His hands moved like he had done this 1,000 times before. The attackers tried again, but Marcus met them with silent precision. Every movement was efficient. No wasted motion, no hesitation. He disarmed one with a twist of his arm and sent the other sprawling with a single strike. It was not rage. It was training, deep, disciplined, unshakable. When the palace guards finally arrived, the attackers were already on the ground, restrained and conscious enough to realize their failure. Lyra stood frozen, her heart racing. Marcus turned to her slowly, his eyes softening again as if a switch had been flipped. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head. "No. But how did you move like that?" He sighed quietly. "Old habits." Later, when the guards took the attackers away, Lyra sat in silence in the garden, her mind racing. Marcus stood nearby, watching the stars again. Finally, she spoke. "You said you were a soldier, but this was more than that." Marcus didn't deny it. "Once I led a unit called the Night Guard. We were trained to fight where no light reached, on the edges of lost worlds." Lyra looked at him in awe. "You never told me. You never asked," he said gently. Then he added, "And I didn't want this part of me to follow me here." She looked at him, her voice soft. "Why did you stop fighting?" "Because I wanted to learn what peace feels like," he said quietly. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The night breeze moved through the glowing trees, carrying the scent of starlight and crystal. Then Lyra said, "I understand now. My people saw you as harmless because they could not feel your power. But your strength isn't something they can sense. It's something you carry inside." Marcus gave a small, tired smile. "Maybe, but I hope they never have to see it again." As the night deepened, Lyra found herself watching him once more. His calm voice, his quiet movements, all of it hid something she could now feel. Behind those human eyes was not just a man of peace. There was a warrior who had seen too much, done too much, and now carried the burden of memory like a silent flame. And though he wanted to forget, destiny was not finished with him yet. The morning sun of Velerith rose softly over the shining towers of the capital. Birds of crystal feathers flew between the high domes, and the air shimmered with quiet peace. But inside the royal palace, the peace had broken. Word of the attack on Princess Lyra had spread. The news ran through every corner of the empire. How had assassins entered the palace, in the safest place in all of Velerith? And who was truly their target? The princess or the human beside her? In the royal council chamber, the nobles stood in tense silence. Princess Lyra sat on the high dais, her face calm but her eyes cold. Beside her stood Captain Marcus Hale, silent, his hands clasped behind his back. Lord Vesser was the first to speak. "We warned you," he said sharply. "Humans bring chaos wherever they go. This is proof." Lyra's gaze was sharp. "Do you believe my life was attacked because of Marcus?" Vesser's lips curled slightly. "Perhaps his presence invites trouble. Perhaps enemies of Earth seek to harm him, and through him, you." Marcus remained quiet, but his jaw tightened. Lyra rose from her seat. "Enough. Without Marcus, I would not be standing here today. He saved me when my own guards failed." A murmur swept through the chamber. Vesser narrowed his eyes. Or perhaps he allowed the attack so that he could play the hero. "We know nothing of his true nature. Who is this man who moves like a trained killer?" The room grew still. All eyes turned to Marcus. He looked up slowly, his expression calm but firm. "My name is Captain Marcus Hale," he said. "I served 20 years in the Earth Defense Fleet. I have fought to protect my world and others who asked for help. I did what I had to do to keep people alive." His voice was steady, but there was something in his tone that silenced even Lord Vesser. It wasn't anger. It was truth. "Your Highness," Marcus added, turning to Lyra, "I will answer whatever questions you wish, but I will not let these people twist my actions into lies." Lyra nodded softly. "You have my trust, Marcus." The words echoed in the hall. Some bowed their heads in respect. Others exchanged doubtful looks, but no one dared challenge her openly again. That night, the palace felt strangely empty. Guards moved silently through the corridors, their armor glinting faintly in the lamplight. Lyra stood on the balcony of her chambers, watching the stars. She could not stop thinking about the moment Marcus had fought the assassins, the way his eyes had changed, the calmness in his movements. She sensed that there was a story behind those eyes, a story no one had heard yet. Marcus approached quietly from behind her. "You're awake," he said softly. She turned to him. "You haven't rested either." He gave a tired smile. "Old habits. Soldiers don't sleep well after fights." Lyra studied him for a moment. "You said you served for 20 years. That's a long time for a human," he nodded. "It felt longer. Will you tell me what happened?" "What made you like this?" she asked. Marcus looked away at the horizon. His voice was low. "You really want to know?" "Yes," she said firmly. "I want to understand the man who saved my life." He took a deep breath. "There was a war before your people knew of us. Humanity was alone then, fighting the Draxan, a race that wanted to wipe out all others. They destroyed colonies, cities, families. I was part of the Titan Defense Force. We were supposed to hold the last line around Saturn's moon, Titan." He paused, his eyes darkening. "The Draxan broke through. Communications were lost. Supplies ran out. My unit of 50 soldiers became 15, then 10, then 3. Lyra's heart tightened as she listened. His words were simple, but each carried weight like stone. "What happened?" she whispered. "We held our ground until rescue came, but rescue didn't come." He smiled faintly, but it wasn't joy. "I was the only one left. I buried the others in the ice." There was silence between them. The stars above seemed to listen. Finally, Marcus said, "After that, I promised myself I would never let those I protect fall again, no matter where I was." Lyra stepped closer, her voice soft. "You have carried that burden alone all this time." He gave a quiet laugh. "It's what soldiers do. We carry ghosts." The next day, the council called for a public hearing. The assassins had been captured, and the investigation revealed they had been hired by agents connected to Lord Vesser's faction, though no direct proof tied him yet. Still, the council wanted to question Marcus. Rumors claimed the human had provoked the attack or used forbidden tactics. The hall was filled with nobles and citizens alike. The air buzzed with tension. When Marcus entered, dressed in his dark blue uniform, the crowd murmured. Some bowed. Others watched with cold eyes. "Captain Hale," said the head counselor, "you stand before us accused of using unauthorized combat methods and withholding details of your past service. Do you deny this?" Marcus met his gaze calmly. "I do not deny that I fought to defend my wife and your princess. I did what any of you would have done if someone you loved was in danger." The counselor frowned. "You moved like no human should. You fought as if you knew the attack was coming." Marcus's voice stayed even. "Training never leaves you, and fear sharpens memory." Whispers spread through the hall. Then Lyra stepped forward from her seat. "Enough of this," she said, her voice ringing clear. "You speak of rules while ignoring what truly matters. Without Marcus, I would be dead. Is that how Velarith rewards loyalty?" Her words struck the council silent. She continued, "You say humans are emotional, yet it is your fear that blinds you. Look at him. He has done nothing but serve and protect. If you cannot see honor in that, perhaps it is not him who lacks vision." Marcus looked at her quietly, a flicker of warmth in his eyes. The head counselor finally spoke. "The council finds no crime in Captain Hale's actions, but we advise caution. His methods are unfamiliar to our kind." Lyra smiled faintly. "Sometimes what is unfamiliar is what saves us." After the hearing, the two of them walked through the palace corridors in silence. "Thank you," Marcus said softly. "You don't need to thank me," Lyra replied. "I only spoke the truth." He looked at her with a small, tired smile. "You remind me of someone from home?" "Someone who never stopped believing in people." She tilted her head. "What happened to them?" His eyes grew distant again. "They believed in me until the war took them too." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them wasn't cold. It was gentle, like shared pain. Then Lyra said softly, "You carry sorrow, but you also carry light. You may not see it, but others do." Marcus looked at her, surprised. "Light?" "Yes," she said simply. "Your strength doesn't come from power. It comes from what you protect." He didn't answer, but her words stayed with him. That night the palace felt calm again, but outside the capital, dark ships began to gather beyond the stars, fleets bearing the mark of the Draxan Dominion, the same empire Marcus once fought long ago. In the palace observatory, Marcus stood beside Lyra, watching the stars through the crystal glass. He could sense it, a feeling deep in his bones. A storm was coming. Lyra noticed the change in his eyes. "What is it?" she asked. He shook his head slowly. "I don't know yet. But something out there is moving. And if it's what I think it is, then peace won't last much longer." Lyra looked at him, her voice soft but steady. "Then we'll face it together." Marcus turned to her and gave a small smile, the kind that carried both sadness and strength. "Together," he agreed. But as the stars shifted above them, the light reflected in his eyes, calm, steady, and ancient, and Lyra finally understood why the others had been wrong about humans. They weren't harmless. They were survivors, and soon the galaxy would learn what that truly meant. The moons of Velarith hung high in the sky, casting a soft silver glow over the crystal towers of the capital. But the calm of the night was deceptive. Across the vast reaches of space, the fleets of the Draxan Dominion moved like shadows, dark and silent. Their arrival would change everything. Inside the palace, Princess Lyra Valera paced through the command hall, her robes whispering against the polished floors. Beside her stood Captain Marcus Hale, calm and alert, his eyes scanning every report projected on the glowing crystal panels. "This fleet is unlike anything Velarith has faced before," said General Tarek, the head of the Valyrian defenses. "Their ships are faster, their weapons more destructive. We cannot hold them with our current forces." Lyra clenched her hands, her mind racing. "Then what do we do?" Marcus stepped forward, his voice quiet but commanding. "We adapt. Your people have skills beyond measure, but they've never fought like this. I'll show you how to use what you have in new ways." The general frowned. "You expect me to teach centuries of Valyrian strategy in a few hours?" Marcus smiled faintly. "I don't plan to teach centuries. I plan to teach survival." For the next several hours, Marcus moved through the palace and training halls like a whirlwind. He worked with Valyrian soldiers and humans alike, showing them small squads, rapid movement, and flexible defenses. To the Valyrians it seemed strange. They were used to perfect precision, psionic calculations, and rigid formations. Marcus taught them something else, an intuition and trust. "Move in pairs," he instructed. "Watch each other's backs. Predict, don't rely on thought alone. Adapt faster than the enemy does. Never wait for a command if you see danger." The soldiers tried to keep up. Some faltered, unsure of this new method. Others, however, began to see its logic. By combining human improvisation with Valyrian precision, small teams could cover more ground and react faster than any rigid formation could. Lyra watched quietly. For the first time, she saw the potential of combining human and Valyrian skills. Marcus's calm eyes, usually gentle, now burned with focus and determination. The attack came sooner than expected. Sensors detected the Draxan fleet entering Velarith's outer moons. The palace alarmed with a low hum, red lights flashing across corridors and towers. Civilians were evacuated, soldiers prepared for battle, and the council gathered for urgent decisions. Lyra stood beside Marcus on the balcony, looking at the distant black shapes against the stars. "There are hundreds of ships," she whispered. "How can we fight them?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "One step at a time. We stop them from reaching the capital. Then we push them back. And we don't fight alone. We fight together." He turned to the young Valyrian cadets training nearby. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "Fear will not save you. Use your minds, yes, but trust your instincts too. Every life matters. If you fall, your companion carries on. That is how we win." Even the seasoned Valyrian generals exchanged uncertain glances. They had never heard a human command with such authority. The battle began at dawn. The sky above the moons erupted with fire as Draxan ships opened their energy cannons. Valyrian defenses returned fire, beams of light streaking across space. Marcus led a squadron of mixed human and Valyrian pilots moving quickly through the chaos. He guided them with precision, directing each pilot like pieces on a board. His instructions were short, clear, and effective. When a Draxan fighter tried to flank their formation, Marcus anticipated it, calling out warnings and positioning his team to block the attack. Below, on the ground, small teams of Valyrian soldiers followed Marcus's strategies. They moved with unexpected fluidity, covering corridors, gates, and choke points. His methods, the rapid response, trust in instincts, adaptation, allowed them to hold places that would have fallen under traditional Valyrian tactics. Even Lyra, watching from the command tower, could hardly believe her eyes. Hours passed. The Draxan fleet was relentless, but Marcus's strategy slowly turned the tide. Small victories accumulated, forcing the invaders to retreat from certain positions. Every time a Valyrian soldier or pilot acted decisively, his calm instructions guided them. And all the while his eyes, calm but sharp, watched every move. The soldiers noticed. They began to trust him without question, following his orders instinctively. His quiet strength inspired them, even when fear surrounded them. At one point, a Draxan ship targeted the palace itself, a massive weapon poised to destroy the heart of Velareth. Marcus calculated the trajectory, signaling a small team of pilots to intercept. With precise timing, they diverted the blast. Lyra gasped. "You saved the palace," she whispered, though she already knew. Marcus's lips curved faintly. "We saved it, together." By nightfall, the Draxan fleet began to withdraw. Many of their ships had been disabled, their formations broken. Velareth was safe, for now, but Marcus knew the battle was far from over. He returned to the palace, exhausted but steady. Lyra met him in the courtyard. You changed everything," she said, her voice full of awe. "I didn't do it alone," Marcus replied, looking around at the Valyrians who had trained under him. "Your people are strong. They just needed to see what they could do in new ways." Lyra studied him carefully. She noticed the faint lines of fatigue on his face, the tight set of his shoulders, and yet his eyes were calm. But there was something else there now. A fire that had not been seen before. That night, Marcus sat quietly in his room, reviewing the battle reports. Lyra entered silently and sat beside him. "You were incredible," she said softly. "I did what had to be done," he replied. "The Draxan are not finished. This was only the first wave." Her hand brushed his arm. "And yet you stayed calm through it all. I don't know how you do it." He looked at her, and for a moment the fire in his eyes softened. "Calm doesn't mean I'm not afraid. It just means I focus on what I can control. Fear is wasted energy. Action is what matters." Lyra nodded slowly. She began to understand the depth of human resilience. Not the kind seen in battlefields alone, but in every choice to stand when all seems lost. "You are not what I expected," she said quietly. "Neither are you," he replied with a small smile. The next day, the Palace Council convened to assess the damage. There were celebrations for the defense and recognition for Marcus's guidance. Even Lord Vesser, who had opposed the human from the start, could not deny the results. "You have shown us something new," the head counselor admitted. "Humans, they fight differently. They think differently. Perhaps we judge them too harshly." Marcus remained silent, letting Lyra handle the diplomacy. She stood proudly, her arm lightly touching his. The council had seen his strength, but only she truly understood the quiet weight behind it. Later in private, she said, "Your eyes, when you fight, they are not just calm. They see everything." He gave a small, knowing smile. "Eyes see what the mind tells them. That's all." But she shook her head. "No, they see more. They see the future, the danger, the people you protect. I felt it today." Marcus looked at her, quietly acknowledging the truth. She was right. His eyes did not lie. They held memory, foresight, and determination, all wrapped in calm patience. That evening, as the twin moons rose again over Velareth, Marcus and Lyra walked through the palace gardens. The air was soft, filled with glowing scents of alien flowers. "We've survived the first wave," Lyra said, her voice thoughtful. "But you are certain they will come back?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, the Draxan will not give up easily. But now we are ready. Your people have learned to fight in new ways, and humans never give up." She looked at him, her heart full of both pride and awe. "You were always more than they saw, Marcus. I see it now, and soon everyone will." He reached out and took her hand gently. "Together, Princess. We face what comes, and together." Lyra squeezed his hand. "Together," she echoed. The stars above Velareth seemed to shine brighter that night. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers. But for the first time, the human captain and the alien princess felt hope. They had fought, survived, and learned from one another. And the calm fire in Marcus's eyes, the eyes that had once seemed harmless, now reflected a strength that could change the fate of worlds. The twin suns of Velareth rose over the crystal towers, casting long shadows that danced across the polished streets. The city was quiet, but the calm was temporary. The Draxan Dominion had retreated after their last attack, but Marcus knew that was only the beginning. In the palace, Princess Lyra moved through the corridors with purpose. Her thoughts were full of strategy, trust, and concern. Concern for her people, and for the human who had changed everything about the way they faced danger. Marcus stood on the balcony, his eyes scanning the horizon. Though the fleet had withdrawn, his calm gaze did not waver. There was a quiet intensity in those eyes. Not anger, not fear, but something far stronger. Resolve. Lyra approached quietly. "You've not slept," she observed. Marcus gave a faint smile. "Sleep is a luxury I don't have right now." "You always seem so ready," she said softly. "Even when the danger comes." He turned to her, his expression steady. "Calm doesn't mean unafraid. It means preparing for what must be done, no matter how impossible it seems." Lyra studied him, her mind filled with awe. She remembered the first night she had seen those eyes in battle, the way he had moved against the assassins. Now she understood fully. His eyes did not just see the present. They saw potential, danger, and opportunity all at once. They were human eyes, yes, but they held the strength of 1,000 choices, 1,000 sacrifices, and 1,000 victories. That afternoon, the Palace Council convened to plan their next move. The Draxan had sent messages through the void, warning of their return. Some Valyrians were panicked, unsure how to prepare for a force they had never truly faced. Marcus spoke quietly but firmly, outlining a plan that combined Valyrian psionic power with human tactical strategy. He divided forces into rapid response teams, each led by a human Valyrian pair. They would protect key areas of the capital, ambush the enemy in strategic locations, and move with speed and adaptability. The council listened, skeptical at first, but as Marcus explained, their doubt began to fade. Every action was logical, precise, and practical. The methods were different from what they had known, but effective. Lyra watched silently, pride swelling in her chest. Her harmless human husband was leading an empire's defense, and everyone could see it now. As night fell, the Draxan fleet returned, larger and more aggressive than before. Their weapons lit the skies like comets of fire. From the palace tower, Marcus directed the defense, his voice calm and commanding. "Squads Alpha and Beta, hold the outer gates. Gamma, flank from above. Delta, secure the civilians and provide support," he instructed. The soldiers moved as if guided by instinct. His calm words gave them confidence. Even those who had doubted humans before now followed him without hesitation. Lyra watched as the battle unfolded from the command balcony. She saw Marcus move from station to station, not raising his voice, not showing fear, only guiding with precision. His eyes, sharp and focused, tracked every ship, every soldier, every threat. And in those eyes she saw something extraordinary, not only the present but the future. The choices that would save lives, the dangers that could not be avoided, and the paths they must take to survive. The battle raged for hours. Draxan ships struck, lasers cut through the night sky, and the capital shook with energy. Yet every time the Draxan gained an advantage, Marcus anticipated it. He repositioned forces, redirected fire, and moved quickly to support teams in trouble. When one group of Valyrian soldiers was surrounded, Marcus personally led a small squad to rescue them. He moved with confidence and control, his actions precise but fluid. To Lyra it was mesmerizing. He did not fight with anger or hatred. He fought with purpose, and that purpose kept them alive. Even the Valyrian generals began to notice. "He is unlike anything we have ever seen," General Tarek said quietly. "Not just a soldier, not just a human. He is a guide, a leader, and a protector all in one." The turning point came when the Draxan attempted to destroy the central energy crystal, the heart of Valerith's power. A massive ship descended, its energy beams aimed to shatter the crystal and plunge the city into darkness. Marcus calculated quickly. He directed small fighter teams to intercept the ship's approach, while psionic Valyrians focused their shields on the crystal itself. He moved with calm precision, signaling each squad with exact timing. The Draxan ship fired. Energy struck the shields. The crystal trembled. Then, with a coordinated strike guided by Marcus's commands, the Draxan ship was disabled. It exploded silently in the distance, and the crystal remained unharmed. Lyra gasped. "You saved the city." Marcus shook his head. "We saved it. Together. The credit is not mine alone. When the battle ended, the Draxan fleet retreated into the void. Velarith was safe. Soldiers cheered, civilians rejoiced, and the council recognized Marcus's leadership. Even Lord Vesser, humbled by the events, nodded silently in respect. Lyra approached Marcus in the quiet aftermath. "Your eyes. They saw everything, didn't they?" She whispered. Marcus looked at her, calm but weary. "I saw what needed to be done. I do not claim to see all, but I focus on what matters most." She studied him, her heart full of admiration. "Your eyes. They are not just eyes. They are a map of courage, a guide through impossible choices. I understand now why people underestimated humans. They cannot see strength in what is quiet." Marcus smiled faintly. "Strength does not always shout, Princess. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits until the moment it is needed most." That evening, the palace held a quiet celebration. Soldiers and citizens honored the defenders of Velarith, and Lyra stood proudly beside Marcus as the crowd applauded. In private, she took his hand. "You were always more than they thought. I see it now, and I hope one day everyone will." Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "I don't need recognition," he said. "I only need to know that people survive, that the choice to protect others was worth it." Lyra smiled softly. "It was worth everything, your eyes. They saw the path when no one else could, and they guided us through darkness." He looked at her, his calm gaze reflecting the starlight. "Then perhaps that is enough." As night fell and the twin moons rose, Marcus and Lyra walked through the palace gardens. The glowing flowers shimmered in the soft light. "The galaxy is vast," Marcus said quietly, "and dangers will come again. But now, I am not alone, and neither are your people." Lyra nodded, her eyes bright. "Together we will face whatever comes. And I will follow your eyes, Marcus. They will show me the way." He smiled gently, his expression calm but alive with warmth. "Then we see the future together." The stars above Velarith seemed to shine brighter that night. The city was safe, the people alive, and the bond between human and Valyrian stronger than ever. Lyra looked at Marcus once more, the man she had first thought harmless. Now she understood fully. His strength was quiet, his courage unmatched, and his eyes that saw not just what is, but what could be. And in those eyes the hope of two worlds, Earth and Velarith, burned brightly. The next morning the council convened again. This time the mood was different. Marcus was no longer a stranger or a human to be doubted. He was a leader, a protector, and a symbol of what humanity could achieve. "Captain Hale," the head counselor said, "your actions have shown us a new way to fight, to survive, and to trust one another. Velarith owes you a debt beyond words." Marcus shook his head, smiling softly. "I only did what anyone should do. Protect those who cannot protect themselves and trust those around you. That is all." Lyra stepped forward, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "And that is why your eyes will always guide us. Not because of magic or psionics, but because of the heart behind them." For the first time, everyone understood. Humans were not fragile, not weak. They were resilient, clever, and brave in ways that could not always be measured. And Marcus Hale, quiet, calm, unassuming, and had shown them the truth. The suns rose high over Velarith, crystal towers glowing like liquid fire. Marcus and Lyra stood together on the balcony, looking over the city they had defended. "Do you ever regret leaving Earth?" Lyra asked softly. Marcus shook his head. "No, Earth taught me to survive. Velarith has taught me to lead, and now I have someone to share it with." She smiled, her eyes reflecting the twin suns. "Then we will face the future together." Marcus looked at her, then out to the stars. "Together," he said. And for the first time in his life, the calm in his eyes was not only determination. It was hope. The galaxy was vast and uncertain, but now humanity's heart shone clearly among the stars. And the alien princess knew, without a doubt, that the human she had once thought harmless was extraordinary in every way.